Hi, welcome to Captive Audience. It's Wednesday, June 4th. We are in the beginning of June, absolutely. And it was a beautiful day over here in Northeast Oregon. Um, it's a great day. Lots of news happening. I have to confess I'm not up on a lot, but I have a smattering of things. And first, we're going to start right here in Oregon. Um, there is, this past weekend, shamefully, Oregon had a trans athlete that won some championships, and I'm so proud of the girls that didn't stand on the podium. And shame, 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 shame on the official that said, "Just get out of the picture, you guys." This is called women's sports for a reason. A trans athlete is does not make them a woman. They're a boy pretending to be. That's the reality. That's the reality. You are not a woman. You're not biologically a female. And it's such a shame that men men or boys that could be competing with their own sex that apparently they're not very good at, they go compete in women's sports to bolster how they feel. Oh, hey, I won a trophy. Well, I'll tell you, it is it's a shame. It's really a shame. And frankly, I hope Trump comes down hard on Oregon for allowing this to happen, because the girls are missing out on collegiate sports, high school sports, things that they've accomplished, to then come in second place, third, fourth behind a boy or a man, whichever it might be, depending on their age. And so it's sickening to see this type of thing go away from girls. And there's a reason you don't see the girls going and competing in boys and men's sports, is because they wouldn't stand a chance. No. And so kudos to these two young athletes for stepping up. Actually, they stepped down off the podium. Good for them. Good for them. We need more of that, and it's absolutely a shame. So I just wanted to get that off of my chest, because we need to. I think, in fact, my mom's the other day when that happened, I told my mom, I said, "Why aren't the trans just competing in their own against other trans athletes?" And my mom goes, "Well, you've been saying that forever." Well, I have been saying that forever. Just make their own class. Let those people that are confused, because I believe they are, let them compete with other confused athletes. The boys will get the boys, the girls will get the girls, and the confused, they can go amongst themselves. And one of these athletes, I don't recall which one, said, it's kind of like we don't go compete with Special Olympics. This is sort of the same thing. And she's spot on right. She is spot on right. It's just like the Special Olympics. Have your own. Have your own sports. Their own league. And yeah, the extra Special Olympics. I like that, Lori. And let girls be with girls. Let's stick to the genetics. And that is coming to more of the sports that they're saying, like the boxing said, you know what, we're testing. Now we are actually testing your DNA, and you're not going to compete. And that's the right way. It is, they're just not the same. They're not built the same. I don't care the hormones. I don't care any of that. We're not the same. It's true. It's not sexist. It's not politics. It's just reality. And it is common sense. Well, for some more in Oregon, the Oregon Department of Transportation, I found this story. It's like, are you guys? It's not. It's funny, not funny. This is from Oregon Live, and it says, "We are in the dark. Everything is a crisis." Oregon Department of Transportation managers reported lack of communication, trust trust from agency leaders. So here you have the Oregon Department of Transportation. They did a, I'm posting the article here. They did a blind survey, anonymous survey last fall. And this is the outcome. And people are saying, my supervisor doesn't even know what the job is. Well, if you have DEI hire, or you've got the best friend hire, or your a relative hire instead of a qualified person hire, that's what you get. And sadly, because of the makeup of the politics in Oregon, that type of thing is happening. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. And so it's really this September survey. It was to help the new top manager see what was needed, what she needed to accomplish, and has not been previously reported. And it's really a low blow that the people there are going, no, my boss doesn't even know the job. So until we get away from DEI hires and get back to merit-based hiring, I don't expect much to change, but it doesn't surprise me. Now, and the reason it doesn't surprise me is, let's see, DMV's not working. Unemployment isn't working. The health department isn't working. We're helping a lot of illegals in more ways than one. We're having tourism sex changes, illegals. We also pay for abortion. And yes, you can go camp out. Just about anything goes, and we'll give you the tools for your drugs. We won't give you the drugs, but we'll give you the tools too. It's pretty sad. Well, and our governor could soon have more say on vacant U.S. Senate seats. Do you think that's going to bode well? I don't. And the bill has been passed, and it's now headed to Governor Kotek to would restore the power to appoint people to temporarily fill vacancies. And I think you hold an election. I think you hold an election, and this is how we have our judges in Oregon have gotten to be so liberal. They retire before the election. The governor appoints a replacement, and this is happening at all levels in Oregon. The governor, and we've had a Democrat governor for 30 years or more, just about, appoints a Democrat judge who then stands for re-election. And they're the incumbent, and an incumbent on a ballot, gives you 20, 30 points. And this is what has happened time and time and time again in Oregon. And so now the governor wants the power to appoint for a U.S. Senate seat. And I say no. And this is coming, I believe, in the nick of time, because more than likely we're going to have maybe not Merkley, but Wyden is probably going to stop. Would be just my guess. I don't have any inside knowledge on that, but that is my guess. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think so. I'm not for that. I'm not for that at all. Now, there's a bill. I want to talk a little bit about legislation. This Senate Bill 1095. It had a hearing today, And the hearing is about fees on vacant homes. If you have a vacant home, you might get fined. So I'm going to, this is Senate Bill 1095. I'm also going to post a link to where you can make comments. And I highly recommend that you do, because the hearing was today. This is an article from Oregon Catalyst, and it says that had a public hearing today at 8:30 a.m. in the Senate Committee on Finance and Revenue. And Senate Bill 1095 imposes a fee on homes that remain empty for an extended period. Well, you know what? If it's your home, you ought to be able to do with it what you want. You actually run the risk of a homeless person coming in and moving in, and then you can't get them evicted for a year or more. So the article goes on to say it's wrong to penalize, fine, and fee homeowners who own a home that is temporarily vacant. It's frankly not the government's job. It's not the government's job to force people into temporarily vacant homes either. And this is like way overreach. This is wrong. So lawmakers have created a housing shortage. It goes on to say, well, no, let me back up. It says the vacant homes the public is concerned about are the truly abandoned drug homes with no owners that have sat idle for years and have become perpetual crime scenes or vandalism displays. Why not fix the problem? Well, let's see. Oregon hasn't fixed the problem, because if an owner had a home and then the druggies move in and they're prohibited from evicting those druggies, the government has created the problem. Now they want to fix it. They want to fix it. And by fining these homeowners, it's crazy. And our Democrat legislature, I will tell you, they don't ever have, in my opinion, very good answers. And so this is the legislature's way of fixing their housing shortage by blaming and punishing everyday homeowners who might have a vacant house due to financial hardship or family emergencies that aren't medical. Yes, there's an amendment being offered that would offer all kinds of exemptions, military, health, etc., which cannot truly capture all the various problems and crises. Frankly, what they ought to do is allow you to evict the people that are occupying your home quickly, efficiently, and in fact, they should be arrested if they are destroying your home. But Oregon won't do that. Trust me, Oregon won't do that. It will take leadership change and legislative change in order for that to ever happen. So I wanted to give you a little heads up on that. It's not a good deal, and it is not going to change the housing in any way, shape, or form here in Oregon. There's also a slate of bills to modernize Oregon water laws, and that awaits votes in the final month of the session, which we're in. But what it is they're holding the fire map, like, I think, in hostage over these types of things. And they want to, from some of the information that I've read, they would like to have putting meters on wells is part of it. In fact, and these are sponsored by Mark Owens, a Republican, and a Democrat. So it's, bipartisan. And these two have sponsored 6 of at least 9 bills being considered in the final month of the 2025 legislation. And some of them are, well, before you can transfer a water right, there has got to be, a study done. If they want more regulation. And, updating Oregon's water laws. Well, let me tell you, Oregon has already got a whole lot in the water laws. In the community I live, there was a city council meeting. There's been several city council meetings, but regarding water. And so the state agency has come to our city and said, you know what? In order for you to receive this grant to make these improvements, you must raise your water rates. Your water rates in your town are too low. Well, I don't agree with that. I think if I don't agree with that. But there's always strings attached to grants that you might get. Even from the federal government, there's always strings attached. And so in some of these bills, they're looking at the groundwater aquifers, which are all getting lower. There's lots of straws. Every well is a straw in there. And there's lots of straws. And in some areas, like the area I live in, they're starting to do recharge projects so there's just several bills. So one of them here, Senate Bill 427, would require an environmental review before water rights are transferred for new uses. Let's see. And Democrats are all behind that one. Then we have Senate Bill 1153. It would require, it's similar to 427, Senate Bill 427. 1153 would require state agencies to review water rights transfers to ensure they do not result in a loss of in-stream habitat for threatened or endangered species, and that the transfer will not harm water quality. It allows state agencies to make transfers conditional on in-stream improvements. And water rights are a big deal, and so they're coming after them. The government of Oregon absolutely wants control. And who sponsored this? It's really a priority of the governor, Governor Kotek, and her natural resources team. Then we have Senate Bill 1154 that would give state agencies more authority to intervene earlier in Oregon's contaminated groundwater areas and establish thresholds for contaminants that automatically qualify them as critical groundwater management areas. And this, I would just about venture to guess, is because over in Umatilla County, on the west side of the county around Hermiston and Boardman, also in Morrow County, this is a big deal because the state agency chose to ignore the warnings that, this groundwater is highly contaminated. The nitrate levels are so high, and yet they didn't do anything about it. When they built some plants and food, part of processing food, you get nitrates out of that. And they were supposed to build some holding ponds. It didn't happen. They said, no, we're just going to let that go by the wayside. Well, it has become critical in some areas of Umatilla County and Morrow County, so much so that in Morrow County, a county commissioner was a whistleblower saying the water, we're at a critical level, and called it an emergency. And so the governor, our former governor, was forced to deal with it. So this bill, I would say, is coming after because of that. And yet, I don't know. They are choosing to say, you know what, the problem is too big to fix. That's what I've heard. That's what I've read, actually, that they've said the problem is too big to fix. And so in this bill, is of 1154. It says, next to modernizing water rights transfers, Kotek and her advisors' big water priority this session has been to update how groundwater quantity and quality are tracked. Groundwater pollution continues to get worse in our most vulnerable communities and fuel public health crises in places like the lower Umatilla Basin. And so that is exactly what I'm talking about. And so our current laws have failed to give agencies the tools they need to enforce the law. That's actually, I believe, a crock of bull from what I've read. They had they had the laws, and they even had a committee, and the committee didn't look. You know, if you don't lift the hood, if you don't lift the hood and look under there, oh, plausible deniability. We didn't know. Oh my gosh, you mean 30 years later, this is really a deal? Yeah, it's a big deal. Well, this bill has garnered 800 letters of opposition, due in large part to a campaign by the nonprofit trade group Oregon Natural Resource Industries. And Bobby Levy and Greg Smith is my representative, sad to say, spoke in opposition to this bill at its first public hearing in April, saying it's an unacceptable overreach of state power. Well, they should have done something. And quite frankly, Greg Smith has been very involved. You know, he is our longest standing representative in the state of Oregon, if not the most, the second most. So, and when I say longest standing, when you realize that you have problems in a state, those longest standing ones have been part of the problem. And Greg Smith has been part of the problem, especially regarding this issue. I can speak to other issues as well that I have personal knowledge of. But this issue, you betcha. He has been part of the development problem, actually, with this, sweeping things under the rug. Then we have House Bill 3116, and that bill would appropriate $3.35 million to the Oregon Water Resource Department to grant to soil and water districts in three counties, and of course to the nonprofit High Desert Partnership based in Harney County. And be careful of those pesky nonprofits. There's 2169. Let's see. Who opposes that bill? Water Watch of Oregon opposes that bill. Helms and Owens and the Association of Oregon Counties and the Oregon Association of Conservation Districts support that bill. Yeah. Then we have House Bill 2169 establishes an interagency water reuse team at Oregon's Department of Environment. Another agency. Let's make another agency that the governor gets to appoint who's filling it. Do you know, I saw a post today. I don't remember the number, but it's something like Oregon has like 400 agencies. Might be give or take 50, okay? We don't need this many agencies, especially if the legislators would do their job. The unelected bureaucrats that are running things and actually making our lives miserable because the legislatures can't or won't, much like our big federal government. Excuse me here. Nope. Okay. So then we have House Bill 3501, which would largely nullify. This is too funny. Let's pass these two bills and then we'll do this other one. It would nullify Senate Bills 427 and Senate 1153, prohibiting the consideration of the public interest and potential impairment when water rights are awarded or transferred. Who supports it? Let's see. Owens, the Oregon Farm Bureau, and the Oregon Groundwater Association. The bill has received 100 letters in opposition and just 9 letters of support. So, you know, this is where when they only see one side or hear from one side, the message is not getting through. It's important to be active in our government. It's our government. It's not yours. It's ours, all of us. House Bill 3544 amends and also and amendments, also referred to as by sponsors as the contested case bill, creates a uniform process for hearing contested cases in water rights permitting and transfers. It would drive parties in a contested case to reach a settlement rather than litigation. Well, let me tell you, when it comes to contested cases, dealing with FSEC, Energy Facility Siting Council, and the siting of energy projects, Oregon State has never held one contested case. Not one. They've never granted a contested case hearing. So I don't have a lot of who's behind it, Helms and Owens. Sure. They're supposed to have contested cases when you disagree with your government. They don't want it to go to litigation. Let it go to litigation. And let's see, who's opposed to it? The nonprofit conservation group Columbia Riverkeeper, as well as the Oregon Farm Bureau, are opposed to it. But Helm and Owens are behind it. Let's see. House Bill 3342 digitizes paperwork and payment processing when it comes to water right permits and transfers, limits extensions on the time water rights holders have to develop infrastructure and to put the water to beneficial use. Yes, if you apply for a water right permit and you don't put your plan together, you can lose it. It is not forever. If it's use it or lose it, kind of like spending in the government. Let's see, we better hurry up and spend this money or we're going to lose it and we'll never get it again. I am waiting for... and that particular bill is awaiting Kotek's signature as we speak. House Bill 3106, it establishes a cross-agency team led by the Oregon Department of Geology and Mineral Industries to create a state water data portal where water availability, flows, and usage data are centralized and accessible. That's putting a gauge on your well. Absolutely, 100%. It passed near unanimously out of the House Committee on Agriculture, Land Use, Natural Resources, and Water in April, and was referred to Ways and Means and recommendation that it be passed with amendments. So there is some updates of some things, and I posted those. I posted that for your comments there, so you would have that information. The miles driven tax. And so, I'm not familiar with it. I am not familiar with that one. But it doesn't here. It looks like Marie has posted something about that. And they, miles driven tax. So I have another one, Senate Bill 1034. This one is actually near and dear to my heart. And I'm going to post a link to submit comment. Excuse me, hang on a second. I got to do this right. And to submit comment. There's going to be a hearing tomorrow morning, of which I'm driving to Salem to be there in support and submit some testimony. And this will be the second hearing. There's some amendments to it, so I would recommend that you read the amendments. And if you submitted testimony before, please do so again, because when they have another hearing, it's my understanding you need to resubmit testimony. And what this is about right now in Umatilla County, there is a project called Nolan Hills that was cited by Energy Facility Siting Council, also known as FSEC. And the county took them to court because FSEC said, we don't need to follow Umatilla County's local codes regarding energy projects. And so we have a code here on particularly on wind turbines. But this bill is more than about wind turbines. It is about the right of the state agency should follow whatever the local ordinances are in a county. And this because the Supreme Court of Oregon said, nah, FSEC gets to do what they want. They don't need to take into consideration the ordinances that a county has. And from in my point of view, that threw away the why do we have land use codes? If when in it says that that counties can have more strict or stringent codes than the state, and there our land use promotes actually being proactive, and that's what the citizens of Umatilla County wanted. That's what was passed by the our county commissioners. There was about 3,000 signatures on petitions that were gathered, and like the county commissioners at the time said, whoa, we've never seen anything like that here in our county. And so they passed the ordinance, and then we have a state agency that says except we don't have to listen to it. Well, this bill says yes, actually you do. And I applaud our Senator Nash, he's in his freshman term and has been the chief sponsor, and Senator David Brock Smith is also a sponsor for this bill. But now there is, and I haven't had time, I've got to read this tonight. I've been busy. We got an amendment to it. And an amendment. And the first page sounded pretty good. Great. You know what? They're going to have to comply. The facility, FSEC, would have to comply with applicable substantive criteria from the affected local governments. But as I read into the second page, it said, we were just kidding. They don't have to. So I haven't finished digesting this. And so I encourage anybody here to put some testimony, read that amendment, and see about giving some testimony in support of the original bill and in the support of, because in my viewpoint, and I can be wrong, but in my viewpoint, when FSEC, one agency and appointed, all the members of the Energy Facility Siting Council are appointed by the governor. And yes, we've had a Democrat governor for over 30 years. And I'm not saying that all of the committee are Democrats. I'm just saying that the governor gets to appoint who they want. And I will tell you, the Department of Energy steers this committee into the outcome that they wish, instead of the outcome of, how the committee might actually feel about something. And I know, because I've talked to committee members over the years that have said, you know what, we really support your stance on this or that or the other, but I just had to vote that way, and that's a shame. It's very hard to find people that are willing to stand up for what is right. Stand up for the local people. Stand up for what is right. And in fact, in the after the first hearing, FSEC said, you know what, you guys are just trying, or no, the argument in opposition of this bill was they're just trying to shut down all of green energy. And actually, that's not the case. Just follow the ordinances. That's all it's about, is follow the ordinances. Local, state, whatever it may be, follow the ordinances. So, yeah, I'm reading a lot of the comments here. So I ask you to please submit some testimony. We need testimony. Read this amendment that they've got. And I'll tell you, while I'm on this, on Oregon, before I change, because I'm going to change to more national, is that I'm a person who stands up for what is right. And most recently, I was involved with other people in a lawsuit against the Oregon Republican Party and the RNC over the election of our current National Committee woman. And in the state Central Committee meeting where this election happened, there was a ballot that they deemed missing during the election, and they named a person a winner. And actually, despite calls by people in there saying, go recount them, find the missing ballot, because there was one missing. And there were other avenues that we tried. We tried to petition the have the counties petition the counties. 17 counties could be petitioned and force the Oregon Republican Party to actually hold a meeting to force them to do another election. But that was thwarted. While we only needed one more county, 2 counties dropped out, and that was thwarted, and that's too bad. So it ended up going into a lawsuit because myself and others felt strongly, so strongly about this, that we were not having election integrity within our own party, in our own meeting. And there's been a lot of people attacked about it. I have not talked about this, but I will talk about it now because we did come to an amicable agreement. And what was found was that, by golly, it bothered them so much, they said, the leadership at the time of the Oregon Republican Party, that they went and counted the ballots again after the meeting that had been held by somebody. They would never disclose who had them, and it was not in a sealed envelope. They counted and they found that missing ballot. And the shame of it was they would not do it in the meeting. It would have required another ballot, and that's no big deal. That's the way it is. Or they could have recounted them, like people in the room said. There were shenanigans that happened behind the scenes, people that were witnessing for a candidate, but yet were in charge of running the election. Absolute conflict of interest. It was not a good thing, and it was not good for the Oregon Republican Party. But I am happy to say that because of that, there is a new rule that when they have an election of anything, of a person, I won't say anything, an election of a person for position, all the ballots are hand counted. They're not tallied, but they are hand counted in the room, and they come to the correct tally of the voting delegates before they leave the room and go to tally them. I'm happy with that outcome. And on Monday was the end of our lawsuit. Today officially is the end of our lawsuit. The judge has signed off on the settlement. And Monday, the Oregon Republican Party issued a statement saying, we regret what happened, essentially, but we've put things in place that, yes, we found a ballot. It would have led to another vote, might not have changed the outcome. That's what somebody thinks. You never know. They just held an election this past weekend, and it took 3 ballots. And on the 3rd ballot, we got a new vice chair. And I will tell you, every vote counts, and you have to vote. And delegates who show up to a state central committee meeting, 8 delegates on that 3rd ballot decided to abstain from voting. I would like to know why that is, because a delegate is elected by their county for one specific reason, and that is to go vote and have their voice heard representing their county at a state central committee meeting. And 8 people on the 3rd ballot. It didn't happen on the 1st. It didn't happen on the 2nd. It happened on the 3rd ballot. And I think those 8 people was one county, and I believe it was trying to throw the ballot tally so somebody else would win. Well, somebody won. Very happy with the outcome. I don't know. He is the chairman, David Brown. I believe it's David. It's either Daniel Brown or David Brown is now the new vice chair, and kudos to him. I'm very glad. I think it was the right person that just got elected. We have a lot of great people in our party, and some like to cause a lot of division. Some just nip at the heels at others, and some like to beat down people. But I will tell you, the truth will come out, and truth will win. Truth will prevail. But it takes people. Had we never sued them, the Oregon Republican Party would not have had that rule change, but we did. And so this little band of a group of us, we decided to stand for what was right and election integrity. What is interesting, even the chair and the co-chair of election integrity were in that meeting where that election mishap happened, the missing ballot, and neither one of them even said a peep. And I found that very interesting, because what is election integrity? You either stand for it or you don't. You either have a moral compass or you don't. So enough said. Our lawsuit is finished, and I'm happy. I'm happy to move on from that. So Pat Finley, you're going to go to South Dakota. Oh my, oh my. Well, I have a couple more things. This is a real big deal. This is a story out of PJ Media. You may or may not have heard about it. And when I read about this morning on X, and I will tell you, if you're not on X, it's really, in my viewpoint, the only place to be. Maybe Meta is great to connect with family and friends, but beyond that, you want some real information, go to and make friends, follow the people that you like, that you respect, and it's great. So this article out of PJ Media that I read about this morning on X is that 2 people were charged with smuggling a dangerous biological pathogen. Well, they're from China. This is nothing that's going to make us physically sick. This is let me find it was 2 people from China that came in here. It was a gal and her boyfriend, and they had actually smuggled this in 2023, and they were studying this pathogen, which is actually, it is a potential agro-terrorism weapon. It is a noxious fungus. It causes head blight of a disease of wheat, barley, maize, and rice. Where I live over here, we grow a lot of wheat, we grow barley, and in Eastern Oregon has, our grain industry is huge. And so these 2 Chinese people, I am so glad they have been charged. So they brought this into, I believe it's the University of Michigan. Let me see. Yes, University of Michigan. And they smuggled this into the United States to study it. Well, truthfully, I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. And so the Chinese government was funding the work on this pathogen in China. And it's as this one little excerpt says, that this case is a sobering reminder that the Chinese Communist Party continues to deploy operatives and researchers to infiltrate our institutions and target our food supply, an act that could cripple our economy and endanger American lives. I don't put any of this by China, absolutely. And so I'm very glad that they've been charged, and they've caught this. What more is there? I don't know, but I'm glad they caught them because this could severely impact not just Oregon, but everywhere in the United States that we're growing corn and grains, wheat, barley, name it. It's a bad deal. And so I'm real glad that they found them. Now I have one piece of good news, and this is from Nebraska. A new Nebraska law classifies school sports teams by their sex. Yep, boys will get to play with boys and girls will get to play with girls. That's easy to do. It's by your sex. That's going to be deemed at birth, not what you pretend it is. And so the Nebraska governor, Jim Pillen, has signed the new law requiring students to play on school sports teams based on their sex. And the law makes sure we simply have a fair playing ground. Kudos to them. Great for Nebraska. And, where this is painful for our young female athletes, or any female athlete that is being shamed to, run against a boy or swim against a boy or get spiked in the head from a baseball or a volleyball and have a brain bleed because of that. That's life-changing. And it is, so I think, hooray for Nebraska. Hey, everybody, have a great night. Don, I didn't mention this at the beginning, so I'll say it now. Don couldn't be here tonight. He had a little bit of a family emergency that he needed to take care of. And so he'll be back next week with Dad's Rants. And I will be back on Friday. Have a super evening.